for me, please. Thank you. So now the comment around form factor. So a typical compute tray today in the dense rack infrastructure is less than 1 RU. It'll hold, in the case of what NVIDIA will build, which is fresh in my mind, 4 GPUs, 72, maybe 100 lanes each. So now you're looking at 300, maybe 350 lanes coming out the back of a 0.9 RU tray. Put this into perspective, a switch today has a 512 lanes. It's moving to 1152, 1024. Those consume 2 RU. So you're not going to feed that accelerator using OSFPs. You simply cannot fit enough of them in the back. And there are in the back because the scale out is in the front, so you can't fit OSFPs. So although I think an OSFP is a wonderful place for gearbox micro emitter-based solutions to get into the market using for the NIC to L1, because if you go back to my first slide, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with a 100-meter cost-effective solution between NIC to L1, GPU to GPU, GPU to LPU connections, and that market will be served first. Scale up truly from the switch to switch or switch to the accelerator is going to struggle with OSFP from density perspective. And this is really where NPO begins to cut ahead. And a few speakers have done a wonderful job, so I can breeze through this one. But it basically gives you all the goodness in that it helps you cut the power down, because most people who are doing these high-speed SerDes are not going to want to do 3 or 4 different SerDes for their ASIC. They're going to over-provision and do one SerDes for everything, meaning OSFP to NPO is going to be roughly the same. It's going to be in the margin of what you can turn the SerDes power on. But when you go to CPO, you need a custom SerDes, die-to-die, like other speakers have said as well. But the beauty of NPO is then that as you speed up from 2 to 4 to 800 gig SerDes, which people are already working on, PLLs for 800 gig SerDes, for example, you don't need a new connector, as we're struggling with in the OSFP space today, to build a 400 gig capable connector. You're on the board, you're soldered, perhaps you're connectorized with the NPO solution, but you can walk as fast, you can walk along with the copper infrastructure as it goes. And very importantly, it keeps the optical engine outside the failure domain of a very expensive accelerator package, okay? And so that allows rework. These things will fail, and you can just take the compute tray out, put a new one in, send it back to your vendor and have it be reworked, and then get your accelerator and the HBM back with a working optical engine and put it back into your fleet. And the CPX effort, among many that has been addressed today, I think is really nice because it allows a standard footprint that allows for late binding mixed media IO choice. And so if you have the CPX footprint with a standard pinout, for example, then inside of that, you can put a silicon photonic engine, EMLs, thin film lithium niobate, or a reverse gearbox wide and slow solution, depending on what you need to do. So you design your board, you design your infrastructure, and you say, well, this needs to be 2 kilometers, I need single mode. This can be 100 meters, I'll put wide and slow. So depending on what you need to do, you're able to bring in it. So there was a question earlier where people were saying, well, what features and technologies are we enabling with NPO that's different and better than OSFP? Because NPO gives you the vendor experience like a pluggable. It's standard, many vendors can play in. You can do price mixing and volume stacking and deal with supply chain issues. But also, because you're deciding on some of the monitoring features that are baked into the hardware, you can perhaps do some observability and some telemetry so that your ASIC knows who she's talking to and what physical medium she's talking to, so you can do predictive failures. I think as we bring in the electro-optical integration closer, some of that telemetry are definitely value adds that we want to add. And then obviously CPO or going on to the interposer, perhaps substrate or interposer, it is ideal. I mean, I've been talking about this in my career for over 10 years. It's the best place you want to be, but just packaging is super, super difficult. And we all know that. Overmold, dealing with optically clean surfaces so that you can do your fiber attach. Obviously, thermal and reliability metrics go even higher. But I do want to point out that interposers are getting very large, okay? Interposers are becoming untenably large as accelerators grow, the sites of the accelerators grow, as well as a number of memory cubes on the interposer also gets added. So it's basically a real estate problem where the optics is just getting pushed off the tray. So we have to be mindful of that trend, as well as the possible risk that the substrate goes away. So CPO-based integration that's been done so far has been substrate level. And as these interposers go away, as you all very well know, there's a huge supply constraint of substrates that are simply just rerouting from one bump pitch to another. And co-op that's being developed by TSMC is a bit of a threat to that. So I do want to point that out as an industry that, like, if you're imagining, hey, one day I'm going to go and do die to die on a 30 micron bump pitch, you might not have a substrate to sit on. You might have to go direct to the interposer, and that's a whole new can of worms of problems to solve. But in this ecosystem, wide and slow plays well. It plays anywhere that you want on any of these form factors. NPO has its idealities. On interposer with dense die to die definitely gives you the best thing you can imagine doing with the ecosystem challenges. And I think I got two more. Yep, thank you. So within AMS OSRAM, we have the capability to do it all at one shop. So we can grow our own epi, process the emitters, do the CMOS, do the micro lensing, build and package densely our emitters onto an interposer with the CMOS, as well as doing any sort of advanced packaging on micro lens attach, fiber attach eventually, and as well as test and qualification. So it's a complete foundry model, if you will, or vendor model of being able to sell you a fully known, good tested engine. And that is a unique position that we have in the market, that we can control the semiconductor and do the advanced packaging for 3.5. And so the vision is that we're a turnkey, wide and slow pure play vendor. Any sort of optical media that you want to pursue, LEDs, VCSELs, lasers, we've done it all. We've done it across all colors, blue, green, red, infrared, deep infrared. So we have expertise on the wide range of epi design, as well as the optical emitter design, and the accoutrement that come with it as far as CMOS lensing and advanced packaging, working with our ecosystem then to enable the fiber connectors and the fiber types, DSPs and gearboxes as the choices of the system are made, and of course going it on board. And because this company has been set up for consumer level volume, the amount of capacity that we have to build these things, roughly just doing some calculations and estimates here, we can serve 2x what is coming as far as accelerator volumes need for optics. And supply constraint for indium phosphide is deeply is challenged. People are making investments in that, but today we have the capacity to be able to serve the 2x the number of GPUs and switches that are out there for scale up. So we're ready. It's all integrated, and it's a matter of getting the technology to work, working with the ecosystem, and getting it out there. And so to kind of wrap it up, then systems get to be bigger. They require that distance. There's a lot of fun things you can do within that 100-meter distance. There's a lot of business that goes on there, a lot of different heterogeneous connections that require on par, cost and power on par with copper, as well as ultra low latency. This is the beauty of wide and slow. And as the various form factors take their shape and they get evolved into different levels of integration, NPO provides kind of the balanced mix of mitigating the risk of not having to go on the package, offering you significant amount of power and cost savings, as well as densification. So you can have just one engine or maybe two NPO engines for your accelerator, because you got to remember, whatever you do with your accelerator, you have to do it 4 times more on the switch. So you want to be very mindful of the footprint that you have. And we at OSRAM are set up to serve the volume and be your solution provider. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much.